Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So today is the 27th lecture of Introduction to Biochemistry, and today we shall discuss about the biological significance of amino acids. Here are the contents of today's lecture. It has two main parts. One part it contains a talk about amino acids being the building blocks of proteins, because proteins have various roles and important functions in living organisms, and similarly there are some specialized roles of amino acids apart from their contribution to the proteins themselves. Then let's talk about the amino acids, that how many. We know that there are 22 different amino acids that are naturally incorporated into polypeptides and are called proteinogenic and natural amino acids, because these are the not all amino acids basically are part of proteins, but we call these 22 amino acids as naturally being incorporated into polypeptides and are called proteinogenic and natural amino acids. So why it is so much important that we focus on amino acids or proteins so much? Because proteins are everywhere in the living organism, and they perform very important roles in the for the survival and even the vital functions of human beings as well as other living beings. So some of the functions are summarized here, that is they are very important for the cellular functions of, like they have to carry out many important functions in, like they have to transfer signals from one place to another, like neurotransmitters are also protein in nature. So not all, but most of the neurotransmitters, they are protein in nature. And then we say that there are many other functions that are of the cell, just like when we talk about the cell membrane itself. So cell membrane is made up of proteins and lipids. So we say that these roles are basically performed by proteins, but in turn, because proteins are made from amino acids, so we say that when we talk about the amino acid importance. So if there are no amino acids, then there are no protein. So that's why amino acids are very important, and they have very vital, you can say very important significance for the living beings. And then we talk about the structural importance, just as we have discussed for the cell membrane structure. They are the part of cell membrane structure. Similarly, other materials, like there must be other things that are made up of proteins. So similarly, enzymes, they are protein in nature, that are in turn made from amino acids. So all enzymes, they are protein in nature. Similarly, hormones, they are proteins in nature. They are very important to carry out many important functions in the living organism. Similarly, transport proteins are messenger proteins, are antibodies that are very crucial and very important for the immunity of our body, and they help us to fight against the germs. So these are all protein in nature. Similarly, plasma proteins in the diet and pharmaceutical important proteins. So these are we also know that our body has many, like muscles are all protein in nature. So these are very we can't survive without proteins are everywhere in the living organisms. So they have very important role, and in turn we say, because proteins are important for us, so that's why we say that amino acids are as important for us as proteins. Alright, so we know about the proteinogenic amino acids that are part of proteins. These are used to make proteins, but there are certain amino acids that are not found in protein. First, for example, is carnitine or gamma. You can say that gamma aminobutyric acid. Then we have levothyroxine. These are basically non-proteinogenic amino acids that are not produced directly they are not produced directly, and they don't become part of proteinogenic. And basically these are produced in isolation by standard cellular machinery. What we call cellular standard machinery is that hydroxyproline and selenomethionine. These are the examples of such kind of non-proteinogenic amino acids. These non-proteinogenic amino acids, these are found in proteins, and they are formed by post-translational modification. Just like I said that they are not part of proteins, but they can be found in protein if there is some modification, like post-translational modification is done. What is post-translational modification? Basically, it is the modification after translation during protein synthesis. Then we say that these modifications are very important for the function or the regulation of protein. For example, we say that carboxylation of glutamate, it allows for better binding of calcium cations. And collagen contains hydroxyproline, generated by the hydroxylation of proline. We know that glutamate is basically a proteinogenic amino acid. It has its own role, and it is also involved in the formation of the synthesis of various proteins. But when carboxylation of glutamate is done, then it has a better ability to bind calcium cations. Similarly, we said that proline is an amino acid, but when it is hydroxylated, then after that we get hydroxyproline, and this hydroxyproline is a part of collagen protein. So they are not directly incorporated into proteins, but after some modifications. So they are not directly produced as directly produced, and they are basically produced by some other means, like hydroxyproline is generated after the run of protein. These are basically derivatives of standard amino acids. So that's how some amino acids become part of proteins, but some amino acids they don't become part of proteins. And examples of these non-proteinogenic amino acids are 2-amino-isobutyric acid and neurotransmitter gamma aminobutyric acid. And then they have their own role, like they can act as a metabolite. We already said about ornithine and citrulline that they are intermediates in the urea biosynthesis. And we have another example here, that is a rare exception to the dominance of alpha amino acid in biology, as is the beta amino acid beta alanine, that is 3-aminopropanoic acid, which is used in plants and microorganisms in the synthesis of pantothenic acid, that is vitamin B5, and a component of coenzyme A. Why we said it as a exception? Because normally we see that most of the amino acid, like proteinogenic amino acids, these are alpha amino acids, except we say that though these alpha amino acids have dominated this biology already, but there are some beta amino acids. We have an example here, like beta alan, or you can say 3-aminopropanoic acid. It is used in plants and microorganisms for the synthesis of pantothenic acid. This pantothenic acid or vitamin B5 is a component of coenzyme A, that is very important enzyme. Okay. Besides their role in proteins, amino acids and their derivatives have many important, biologically important functions. So there are few examples of these substances as shown here. These are basically the amino acids. You can say that the derivatives of amino acids, but whatever we have to remember that we call those type of substances as amino acids that have amino group as well as carboxyl group, and they could be alpha amino acid and they could be beta amino acid. We have already talked about the difference between alpha and beta amino acid in the previous lecture. So we were talking about the few examples of these substances here, that they have specialized roles of amino acids here, and this alternative use of amino acid basically is an example of the biological opportunism that we shall repeatedly encounter, that how nature tends to adopt material and processes that are already present to new functions. Like these amino acids, they have been there in the body, but nature has its own like strategies to adopt material and processes for the new functions, and they can help for the survival and the other things. Okay. Starting from the examples of few amino acids here, like you can see the structures of glycine, that is the simplest amino acids available, and then we have dopamine structure that has benzene type of ring, that is aromatic part here too. So we have gamma amino butyric acid too. So apart from the alpha, beta, and even gamma position, we have this like carboxyl, this amino group is present there. So these just like in this case, this gamma amino butyric acid, also known as GABA, these amino acids are basically used as neurotransmitter substances. Basically neurotransmitter are the substances that are released by nerve cells to alter the behavior of their neighbors. So have specialized roles, and these specialized roles are accomplished by amino. If we talk about the structure of histamine, then we have here a heterocyclic moiety that is present in this amino acid, and then in thyroxine is also an aromatic ether type of compound, and these two amino acids also have their specialized role for like to conduct. And in case of histamine, that is the decarboxylation product of histidine. If you see this one, then basically histidine is one of these like important, the standard amino acids, and if you talk about the decarboxylation of histidine, then we get this histamine. So this histamine is a potent local mediator of allergic reaction. So it has very important roles. Similarly, thyroxine is a tyrosine derivative. Tyrosine is also one of the 22 amino acids that we know, and very important for the living organism. And this thyroxine is basically an iodine containing thyroid hormone that generally stimulates vertebrate metabolism. So it's also involved in the vertebrate metabolism, and it does have a different thing in there, that it has iodine present in it. here are few more amino acids, and these important amino acids are basically important intermediates in various metabolic processes, just like as we have discussed in the previous slide that we use there an amino acid that is used as a metabolite for the vertebrate metabolism. And then here are two more examples, and these examples are of citrulline and ornithine, and these are basically intermediate in urea biosynthesis. And citrulline structure, if you can have a look, and then this amino acid has a urea type of moiety present in it, and with the 3 carbon chain linked to the basic amino acid skeleton. And then we have ornithine. In ornithine, it is also you can say that this is dibasic amino acid, dibasic monocarboxylate type of amino acid, and this one is also a intermediate in urea biosynthesis. Next we have homocysteine. Homocysteine is an intermediate in amino acid metabolism. Homocysteine is here shown here, and it has a thiol type of you can say that thiol type of group in present as a part of the side chain. Talking about S-adenosyl methionine, it's a basically biological methylating reagent that it is used to methylate certain compound present in the during metabolism. And if you have a look here, then we have here a dimethyl sulfide type of moiety here that has sulfur has a positive charge on it. So you can say that basically it is not disulfide. There is a you can say that here is adenosyl moiety present with the methionine type of amino acid. So basically it is S-adenosyl methionine. So these two groups are attached together. So if you talk about this thing, then we have that the sulfur, if it is it can easily methylate certain other compounds. So that's why it is used as a biological methylating reagent. Similarly, if you talk about these amino acids, these are few of the rules that amino acid carry out in certain places in proper. And then we say that there are basically 700 different amino acids that are found in various plants, fungi and bacteria, most of which are amino acids. And these amino acids are, for the most part, their biological roles are so much important that although the fact they are toxic, still they have protective functions. And you can say that because we have the examples mentioned here, like if you take the example of azacitidine, it has structure similar to serine amino acid. So these amino acids are basically useful antibiotics. We say that these amino acids have a bit toxic role, but they are being protective. They are used as an antibiotic in the organism. So these many of these amino acids are simple derivatives of 20 standard amino acids. Although some of them include azacitidine and beta-cyanoaniline, they have unusual structure. Just like if you see the structure of beta-cyanoaniline, then it does look similar to alanine, but in this case we have a cyano group present in here. And in case of azacitidine, if you have a look, then we have it has a diazo type of moiety present in there. So this is very unusual for the structure of amino acid, but the important thing is their role that they play in the human body. That's why we call as they are very important for us. There are some other functions that are non-protein function in there in case of amino acids. So basically these as we have discussed in the previous slides, that these amino acids have the specialized roles assigned to them. So apart from those, when we talk about amino acid, they can be used to synthesize other molecules too. Just like tryptophan is an amino acid, is a standard amino acid. It is a precursor of neurotransmitters serotonin. And similarly tyrosine and its precursor phenylalanine, they are the precursor of catecholamine. Catecholamine is basically a neurotransmitter, dopamine, epinephrine and norepinephrine and various trace amines. So these tyrosine is a basic precursor of these neurotransmitters. If we talk about phenylalanine is a precursor of phenethylamine and tyrosine in humans. In plants, it is the precursor of various phenylpropanoids which are important in plant metabolism. As you can see that these amino acids, they are the precursor of other molecules, but their role was to synthesize those molecules or to transform into other molecule. But the other molecule, they also have certain important functions assigned to them for the regular metabolism too. Talking about other examples of these amino acids acting as a precursor of other molecules, we have glycine example here. That glycine is basically a precursor of porphyrin rings. If you know about like in heme type of structure, there are 4 porphyrin rings that are capturing or holding a metal atom inside there. So these glycine amino acids are the precursor of porphyrin rings. And then we have arginine. Arginine is a precursor of nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is also one of the you can say that important small molecule that is involved in the metabolism. Then we have ornithine and acetinosyl methionine. These are the amino acids which are precursor of polyamines, and polyamines are also metabolites of human body. And then we have aspartate, glycine and glutamine. These are precursors of nucleotides, and nucleotides have their very important because the functions, because these are the genetic material as well as they are used to transfer information for all the different functions of different parts. Like we have if you talk about RNA, we are talking about nucleotides basically here. So this information can be transferred to other messenger protein too. Then let's have a look some other on another function. Like we have some non-standard amino acids which are used as defense against herbivores in plants, and the example shown here is the canavanine. Basically canavanine is an analog of arginine. As you know that arginine is a standard amino acid. If we talk about analog, it means that we are talking about one or more carbon atoms addition, and then that molecule is basically used as a defense against herbivores. So these, because it is used as a defense against herbivore, it must be present in some plants. Like we are talking about legume, like फलियाँ जिसे हम कहते हैं, या मटर जैसे कह लीजिए. In many legumes and in particularly large amounts in Canavelia gladiata. This is a plant, we call it as sword bean. So this amino acid protects the plant from predators, और उनमें जो है वो such as insects and can cause illness in people if some types of legumes are eaten without processing. Like for the defense of these plants, these chemicals are used, and this chemical is basically an analog of arginine. So this is a proteinogenic amino acid here. The next amino acid that we want to talk about is a proteinogenic amino acid that is known as mimosine. Mimosine is basically found in other species of legume, and in particularly in this species, and this compound is an analog of tyrosine and can poison animals that graze on these plants. Just like on one hand, the amino acid like canavanine, it was used to fight against herbivores, and on the other side here you can say that these were used to fight against certain insects too. But in the other case, like mimosine, this compound is used to poison animals that graze on these plants, or they can walk on these plants, so this is used as a poison for those animals. Let's have a look on another important function of these amino acids. Amino acids basically they act as Zweiter ions. Zweiter ions are the compounds that have both positive and negative poles in them. And if you remember the structure of amino acid, then amino acid has a carboxyl group and as well as amino group. And in case of carboxyl group, we have because this one is acidic, so it tends to give proton and it stays in the carboxylate form, while amino group on the other hand, it has basic character, so it tends to accept electrons and tries to stay in the NH3 positive form. So this is how we have one positive and one negative and present in the same molecule of amino acid. So when we talk about the buffer, if you know about the buffer, that buffers are basically, these are the compounds, or you can say that have both does have a acidic part and also it does have a basic part. Just like when we make buffer in laboratory, what we do, that we have, if we talk about an acidic buffer, we have a acid with the mixture of its conjugate base, and then these two, like if we add, what is the basic role of these buffers? They try to act to minimize the effect of small addition of acid or bases within certain pH range. So when we talk about the physiological pH, just like physiological pH is basically the pH of the body. So in our human beings we have it around 7.4 level. So at physiological pH, when we talk about amino acid nature, so amino acid, this carboxyl group is dissociated, forming a negatively charged carboxylate ion, while amino group, being a weak base or proton acceptor, it is protonated, forming positively charged ion. So that's how Zwitter ion, this is what we call Zwitter ion. But the important point about Zwitter ions is that, so the molecule that attains both positive and negative charges but with no overall charge or no net charge, so that's why we call these as Zwitter ions. But Zwitter ions act very much similar to buffers, because they can also act either as acid, that is the proton donor, or it also acts as a base, that is the proton acceptor, and they also resist the change in pH in their certain environment. Alright, talking about amino acids, just like glycine, that is the simplest amino acid. If we talk about glycine, then if the pH is kept very low, and then we keep on increasing pH, then this amino acid undergoes many changes, starting from the first dissociation of carboxyl group, because carboxyl group is the acidic one, so at low pH it dissociates into carboxylate, and then if the pH you can say it further increased, then it goes to the we have dissociation of this NH3 positive too. So if we talk about the pKa of we have basically this is not the pKa here, but it's the pH of carboxyl group, that tends to be around 2.34 value. And then if we talk about the pKa of alpha amino acid, basically this pH of alpha amino acid, that is 9.6. But there is a point where the dissociation, we don't see any positive charge or negative charge. If you keep on adding certain acid or even base in there, though we don't see any change in the pH of this amino acid. So this point is what we call it isoelectric point, and the pH around this point is 5.97. So this point is basically characteristic of every amino acid. But the objective of all this discussion is that for a particular amino acid we have two pH, or you can say pK values, where this amino acid can act as a buffer, just like the pK1, like this range here it is written here, that here this amino acid can act as a buffer, and there is another possibility that it acts as a buffer in the second point. So glycine can act as a buffer in two pH ranges. Here are the references used for this lecture. Next, I want you to tabulate important amino acid name with their role very precisely and briefly.